Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunadhira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada. Jai Om Prabhupada, Paramahansa Prabhupada, Gacharya Ashtottara Shishimad, Abhaya Charanara Vinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jai Nityalila Vishnu Vishnu Pada Stottara Shishimad, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Thakur Prabhupada Ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki. Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Garadha Shiva Shari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Vrindavan Dham Ki Mayapur Dham Ki Mathura Dham Ki Navadip Dham Ki Gangamai Ki Jamunamai Ki Tulsi Devi Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Samavita Bhaktivinoda Ki Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Prihat Pidanga Ki Nitai Gaur Premanandi Shri Krishna Janmasthami Ki Shri Krishna Avirbhava Mahotsava Ki Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glory to the assembled devotees, all glory to the assembled devotees, all glory to the assembled devotees, all glory to Shri Guru, Shri Gauranga, Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, I would like to read a particular verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam by Srila Prabhupada, and so this is it's a little longer purport. I'm not going to finish the whole purport, but this is also this purport and verse gives us an idea and gives us also the understanding of how is it that Devaki, or how is it that Krishna appeared from the womb of Devaki. So all that is contained in one very potent verse, which of course our acharyas have commented on, and Srila Prabhupada especially commented on. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this is 10th canto, 3rd chapter, texts 7 and 8. So reading the verse itself. Umuchur munayo deva sumanam si mudavita mandam mandam chaladara jagarjur anusagaram nishite tama udbhute Jayamane Janardane Devakyam Devarupinyam Vishnu Sarvaguhashaya Avidashidyata Pachcham Disindir Eva Puskala. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. The demigods and great saintly persons showered flowers in a joyous mood, and the clouds gathered in the sky and very mildly thundered, making sounds like those of the ocean's waves. Then the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, who is situated in the core of everyone's heart, appeared from the heart of Devaki in the dense darkness of night, like the full moon rising on the eastern horizon, because Devaki was of the same category as Sri Krishna. Just wanted to look at something here. Okay. So purport by Srila Prabhupada. As stated in Brahma Samhita, Ananda Chinmaya Rasapati Bhavita Bhistabir Jaeva Nija Rupataya Kalabi Koloka Eva Nivasat Akilatma Bhuto Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. This verse indicates that Krishna and his entourage are of the same spiritual potency, Ananda Chinmaya Rasa. Krishna's father, his mother, his friends, the cowherd boys, and the cows are all expansions of Krishna, as will be explained in the Brahma Mohana Lila. When Brahma took away Krishna's associates to test the supremacy of the Lord Krishna, the Lord expanded himself again in the forms of many cowherd boys and calves, all of whom, as Brahma saw, were Vishnu Murtis. Devaki is also an expansion of Krishna, and therefore this verse says, Devakyam Devarupinyam Vishnu Sarvaguhashaya. At the time for the Lord's appearance, the great sages and demigods, being pleased, began to shower flowers. At the seashore, there was a sound of mild waves, and above the sea, there were clouds in the sky which began to thunder very pleasingly. When things were adjusted like this, Lord Vishnu, who is residing within the heart of every living entity, appeared in the darkness of night as the Supreme Personality of Godhead before Devaki, who appeared as one of the demigoddesses. The appearance of Lord Vishnu at that time could be compared to the rising of the full moon in the sky on the eastern horizon. The objection may be raised that since Lord Krishna appeared on the 8th day of the waning moon, there could be no rising of the full moon. In answer to this, it may be said that Lord Krishna appeared in the dynasty, which is in the hierarchy of the moon. Therefore, although the moon was incomplete on that night because of the Lord's appearance in the dynasty where the moon is himself the original person, the moon was in an overjoyous condition. So by the grace of Krishna, he could appear as the full moon. To welcome the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the waning moon became a full moon in jubilation. Instead of Devarupinyam, some texts of the Srimad Bhagavatam clearly say Vishnu Rupinyam. In either case, the meaning is that Devaki has the same spiritual form as the Lord. The Lord is Satchit Ananda Vigraha, Brahma Samhita 5.1, and Devaki is also Satchit Ananda Vigraha. Therefore, no one can find any fault in the way the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Satchit Ananda Vigraha, appeared in the womb of Devaki. So I'm just going to read the purport up to that point. Umagyanatvinandasya ganam jana sharakaya chakshurumilitam yena tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Chaitanya manobishtam stapitam yena bhutale swayam rupagata ahyam daratishva parantika. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Dishatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashari Gaura Bhaktivinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I just realized that I didn't allow for any introduction, so I'm sorry about that. I just saw the chat, so I don't know if Shanta Vigraha, you'd like to say something. But anyway, looks like the introduction got displaced, which is okay. It's I think most people here know me in any case, and I guess any other announcement about Janmasthami can be made afterwards. So this beautiful verse, Srila Prabhupada's purport, the emphasis of the verse is Devakyam Devarupinam. And Devarupinyam or Vishnu Rupinyam, as Srila Prabhupada differentiates in the purport, it's the same. Either because, as Srila Prabhupada in his first paragraph in the purport, he says, all the cowherd boys, Nanda Maharaj, they're all expansions of the internal energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We are also Vibhinamsha. We are also expansions of the Supreme Lord's potency. But we are touched and covered by material nature, whereas the eternal associates of the Lord are directly aloof from all these things. Now, why is Srila Prabhupada give so much emphasis? Why does the Bhagavatam give so much emphasis to this fact? The reason is that some Vedic scholars, some atheists, it was interesting, show how crazy the material world is. Today, when I was looking for something on the internet, I saw one article that said the Harvard head chaplain has just been chosen practically unanimously by all the other chaplains, and he's an atheist. So I found that very interesting. The head chaplain. It shows how intellectual institutions, or how the intellect itself, can try to surpass the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the amazing thing is that all the theists elected him. So this shows how crazy Kali Yuga can be. So anyway, going back to so how can the pure Supreme Personality of Godhead appear from the womb of a lady? No, a very special lady. So therefore, the words Devaki Devarupinyam. Now, in the verse itself, it says that after that, it says Vishnu Sarvaguha Shaya. First of all, Krishna is already there, especially in this particular form that he appeared in, which of course is the next verse of the Vishnu form with 4 arms and all paraphernalia all this transcendental paraphernalia. He's already there in everyone's heart. Therefore, Vishnu Sarva Guhashaya. He is situated in the core, hidden within everyone's heart. Then Avidashad, but he appeared. He appeared, although no one can actually see him, meaning unless you're a devotee, you can't see him. So this is the introduction we have to the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, Krishna appears so wonderfully. As it is stated, of course, there are 4 very particular verses in the beginning of the 4th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Many beautiful verses. And these beautiful verses are to explain and why does the Lord appear? First of all, the Lord doesn't appear in this material world. Ajopi san aviyatma bhutanam ishvaropi sam. Prakatim adishtaya. Prakatim swamatishthaya. That he appears by his transcendental energy. Sambhavam yatmamayaya. Atmamayaya. By his own Atmamaya, by his own internal potency. He appears, and even though he appears to take birth, he is actually, never takes birth. But this is his pastime. And this pastime, Bhutanam Ishvaropi Sam. He never loses his potency. So why does he do it? Then Krishna goes on to explain himself. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhutanama dharmasya. That to annihilate. Now this is all external. We have to always remember these are external reasons. This is not the real reason why Krishna appears. That comes in the next verse. But because he appears in so many different incarnations, it's not that, as Lord Brahma said, Ramadi Murtishu Kalani Amena Tishtan Nanavataram Akarod Muvane Shukintu. That he has so many different incarnations, Rama, and so many, Nana Avataram. But Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Bhumamyo. But Krishna is always the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he appears in all these different incarnations to annihilate demons. Even then, when he appears, there's always his main purpose, as stated in the beginning of the next verse. Paritranhaya sadhunam. He comes to deliver. Srila Prabhupada explains that deliver means he comes to always deliver them to a higher degree of surrender. So he comes for that purpose. Whenever there's a discrepancy in religion, so there's always, in the material world, there's always some discrepancy in the religious process. But when that discrepancy becomes prominent, then Krishna appears. And but really, Paritranaya Sadhunam, to deliver or to give his devotees the opportunity to surrender more, to see, to understand. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna, he's explaining why he wants to come to the material world. He says, everyone is worshiping me. Not everyone's worshiping Krishna, but those who worship me, they worship me in awe and reverence. But they don't understand the sweetness. Now, Krishna is saying this because he himself is remembering his own sweetness. And that remembering his own sweetness is called Jagannath. So he's remembering his own sweetness. And he's saying, I'm going to appear so that people can understand they don't just worship me in awe and reverence, but they're going to worship me in according to my position, my real activities, my dearmost activities, which can only be understood through devotional service. Queen Kunti, she expressed, she said that my Lord, Navedikaschit Bhagavam Chikir Shitam, that your pastimes, Tavihamanasya Nrinam Bidambanam, our bidambanam, our bewildering, our unfathomable to the material mind and to this material world. And just to, she wanted to make sure also that everyone understands that Krishna's real purpose in coming is paritranaya sadhunam. So she says, nayasyakas chit dayato sti karichit. You don't come to, because of the strife between the envious persons, and or even to show some special mercy. Nayasikas chit daito hikari chit dveshas chayasmin vishamamatir ninam. You don't, people only think you're partial. You have nothing to do with the all the social interactions and all the different interactions of the modes of nature in this material world. You don't come for that. But it's bewildering. Janma karma chavishvatman. No, you are the soul of the universe. The universe, otherwise, nothing can go on without you. And ajasya akartur atmanam. Ajasya kartur atmanam. You, ajasya, you are without birth, but yet you have appeared. And you descend. Not only do you appear, but tiran rishishu yadasu, you appear among men, saintly persons, animals, aquatics, bird, everything. All these things, certainly tad atyanta bidambanam. Certainly, this is very bewildering. So, the birth of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his appearance is very, very, very bewildering, very difficult to understand. And why is it so difficult to understand? Because if you try to understand Krishna with logic, he says, that he can't be understood so well. Lord Brahma, in his prayers, he describes why Krishna is difficult. Pantastu koti shattavatsara sampragamyo. He says that the even great yogis, they have a hard time understanding Krishna. Great yogis, great jnanis, vayoratapi manaso muni pungamanam. Even by hatha yoga or by intense meditation for thousands of years, what do they achieve? So pyasti yat prapadasim yavichinta tattve govindamari purusham tamam vachami. That they can really only understand, they can only understand to a certain degree. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that Vedaham samititani, that I know everything that has happened, everything, anything, every detail of every, we could just imagine the power of the consciousness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I can understand everything that's happened in the past, everything within unlimited material universes. I've seen it, I understand it. Vartamanani charchuna. I understand everything that's happening in the present. I'm fully cognizant, as it says in the first line of the Srimad Bhagavatam, that abhigya. I understand everything. No, nothing I don't understand. Nothing gets past me. Of course, when we celebrate the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Rukmini does make the point that there is one thing you don't understand. And Krishna's totally amazed by that statement. He says, what is that? You don't understand how sweet, how fragrant, how the influence, the power of your lotus feet. You don't understand that, Krishna. You don't understand that, not at all. So, Bhavishani Chabutani, and in the future, I understand everything that's going to happen in the future. It's all laid out, except for, of course, we have a little bit of free will. It's not like we're robots and Krishna's just, running us through some, like sometimes a child will have a little train or something and it just goes around and around and around. And so there's no mystery there. Yes, there is some free will, but not so much, especially the more conditioned we are, the less free will we have. Mam tu vedana kaschana. But me, nobody understands. So Krishna says, and then how can we understand? He's appearing, he's appeared in this material world, he's present. How do we understand Krishna? So, of course, Krishna says in different places, he says that Bhaktimam abhijanati yamancha yasmi tattataha. The way you can understand me, and of course, as we go to the last verse in these 4 verses of the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Janma karma cha me divyam. When you understand that my janma, my birth, and my karma, my activities are divya. They're totally spiritual, totally transcendental. My karma is not, Srila Prabhupada makes this point. My karma is not niskriya. It's not, my activities are totally transcendental, divya. But that doesn't mean that by their being divya, that they don't exist, that I'm just some formless Brahman. Actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he objected to this so strongly with Murari. He said, there's one rascal named Prakashananda who is trying to cut off my arms and my legs, otherwise emphasizing the Brahman aspect, and but in a Mayavadi way. So he was not happy about that. So therefore, who can understand this? His birth is eternal and transcendental, and we are eternal. And therefore he says, Svaktadeham punar janma, when you give up this temporary body, naiti mameti sorjuna, you will come back to me. And you will assume your transcendental spiritual identity. You will understand this fully, 100%. There will be no more mystery. You understand that I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Divya means not like us, not like we mortals. No. In one class where Srila Prabhupada is speaking about Janmasthami, he quoted Yamhi Vyativartyate Purusham Purusharshabha Sama Dukkha Sukham Dhiram Somritatvaya Kalpate. Srila Prabhupada said that anyone who's experiencing Krishna says, anyone who's experiencing the difficulties of this material world, oh, best of all, speaking to Arjuna, best of all, warriors of all personalities. If that person who is under the distress of this material world uh, says that can achieve samaduka sukam dhiram, can become totally equiposed in happiness and distress. So amritataya, that person achieves the immortality, the nectarian position, of being within this. And how do they do that? Bhaktimama vichanati, through the agency of devotional service. First of all, we all have to remember that actually we have nothing to do with this material world. Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prem, Sadhya Kavanoi, that Krishna Prem is something that's always situated in the heart of the living entity. It's always there. Sadhya Kavanoi, it's not something that we acquire through some process. We go through a process. We have sadhana bhakti, but these things are just to take away what's covering what is already there. It's not creating something within us. Shravana, Adi Shuddha. When we engage in Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Shmaranam, Shuddhachite, with a purified heart, and Korya Udoy, the understanding, the remembrance that I am a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead comes, manifests within our hearts. So this understanding is so special, to understand the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and to understand that I am his eternal servant, and that Krishna Prema is my natural condition. We naturally want to be, Pratiparamritam Vitasvadanam. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, at every step, every living entity is looking for the same thing. And at every step in spiritual life, and especially in the chanting of the holy name, we will awaken greater taste. But that taste is what every living entity at every step, at every moment in their lives, they're looking for the same thing. They're all looking for Krishna. It's just that we very expertly chosen very poor substitutes. Family, friends, society, country, money, power. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is money, power, and the opposite sex. Three greatest things that bind us to material existence, to the material world. So we have to try to understand very carefully. Krishna also says, Bhaktya Tunanyaya Shakya Aham Evam Vidur Juna Gyatum Drashtum Chatatvaina Pravishtum Cha Paramtapa. He says, not only do you know me by bhakti, but you can only know me by bhakti. Only know me, gyatum, drashtum. What to speak of seeing me? If you want to see me, you can only see me, just like Narada Muni. He was only able to see Lord Vishnu one time. And during that one time, the Lord told him, you just saw me. He was actually had already disappeared. This form which you are seeing, which you just saw, you will never see again in this lifetime. Otherwise, talk about Vipralamba. You will never see me again. But you'll see me in your heart. No. So therefore, also we understand that just seeing Krishna directly sometimes can be a manifestation of false ego. Otherwise, I want to see Krishna. As Prabhupada said, I saw Krishna dancing yesterday. So if one begins to say things like that, then people will either think that you're not you may not be you may be making things up, you may be a sahaja, or they themselves may become sahajas. Oh, well, if so and so can see Krishna, why can't I? Just like I've met many people at their first visit to the temple and say, yes, yes. They'll see Prabhupada or the deity. Yes, he was smiling at me. He winked at me. He said this and that to me. First time. Of course, we can't deny that someone may have a prearranged mystical experience. Just like Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he read Chaitanya Charitamrita 3 times. Each time, he said, just like Lord Brahma, who read the Vedas, studied the Vedas 3 times. The first time he realized Brahman, the second time he realized Paramatma, and the third time he realized Bhagavan. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur said the same, that the first time I read it, I could understand who was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The second time I read it, I could understand devotional service. And the third time I read it, I could understand the supreme goal of life, prayojan. So it's not such an easy thing, but it's possible. But it's only possible through devotional service that we can see Krishna, and then pravishtum, yatum, drashtum, chatatvena, pravishtum, and to enter into otherwise to understand the intricacies, the subtleties, the nuances of devotional service. That's something even more and more and more intimate. So all this is what Krishna's birth is achieving in our lives. Of course, there's many, many reasons. In the beginning of the Bhagavatam, another external reason is given, that the Mother Earth is distressed. So many Kshatriyas. Previously, after the demigods had defeated the demons, then so the demons at one point in time decided, we have to regroup, just like, if some enemy attacks us or attacks an army, they become scattered, then they have to regroup. So they decided to regroup on the Earth planet. And this was creating such a burden. Of course, this was all meant to bring about the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything leads to Janma Karma Chame Divyam. That the whole purpose of material creation is so that we can understand Krishna, or so that we can become so fortunate to participate in his Leela. Of course, all the devotees of ISKCON and all Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they have that opportunity because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he stated that he had already liberated everyone. It was just a question of time. So therefore, he has given the charge or the responsibility to all of his devotees, Jaritaka Krishna Padesham Hara Gyaya Guru Anyatara Idesh. That he's given us all the responsibility to become gurus. One may be a Diksha Guru, one may be a Shiksha Guru, one may be a Pradarshika Guru, introducing someone to Krishna consciousness. But we must become Guru by the order. And therefore, because that order is there, and the order is there that we should all give the fruits of love of God to everyone. Therefore, we have to acquire these things. And we acquire these things through the parampara. And then we become instruments of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we enter pravishtam, we enter into the mystery of his pastimes. We actually have an opportunity to be part of the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. His mercy is so great. Srila Prabhupada said, maybe a few hundred people actually realized who Krishna was, besides his eternal associates. Only a few hundred people maybe could understand the real nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what to speak of? Otherwise, his mission was so great, his mercy was so great that he's just continually including more and more people. He had to come because Krishna's instruction, Sarvadharmam Parijajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja, that his instruction to surrender. You have to surrender to Krishna. And so that may be a little difficult for many people to surrender to Krishna. But Krishna said, Sarvadharmam Parijajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja, you must take shelter of me, aham dvam sarva papebhyo. Because if you do that, you can go through some arduous process of austerities and penances. But if you do that, I will relieve you of all your sinful activities. Do not fear. Of course, relieving us doesn't mean that a temporary relief. It means permanent relief. And therefore, sometimes devotional service is seen to be a little difficult because you are being permanently released from the material energy. That's done through the agency, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago. Rukmini Devi spoke about the power of Krishna's lotus feet. The gopis offer a prayer to Krishna's lotus feet. And the Bhagavatam advises us, Samashvita yeda parapalavam plavam, that we should take shelter of the boat. Krishna's lotus feet are like a boat because they're delivering us from the realm of material existence to the realm of Krishna consciousness. So, Mahat Padam Punya Yashom Murari. Now, this line in that particular verse, coming from the 10th canto, is very special because this is why only Krishna's lotus feet, because Punya Yasho, because Krishna is Punya Yasho. He is the maximum manifestation of purity, and his fame is so great. Just like people take shelter of famous people. Someone may spend their whole life becoming expert and playing Beethoven, Bach, or some other great composer, or they may become a very expert modern musician and try to imitate some modern group or to play their songs. Or, historians sometimes one historian will dedicate themselves. They thought one personality was so great, but Mahat Param Punya Yasho Murare. But because Krishna is the greatest and the most wonderful, everyone should surrender to his lotus feet only. And that's what it says in this particular line of the Bhagavatam. Bhavam Budir, Vatyapadam, Param Param, Param Padam, Yadvipatam Natesham. Those lotus feet are so wonderful. They're repeated again and again and again. If you take shelter of them, Vatyapadam, Param Param, they are supreme. And because they're so supreme and so wonderful, that Vatyapadam, the water contained in the hoofprint of a calf, the whole material existence becomes like the water contained in the hoofprint of a calf, and we can cross over. And we should cross over because Bipadam, because the material world is Bipada. It's very, very dangerous, very, very risky. So we should be well aware. So Krishna is doing all of this. He is relieving the living entities of their anxiety. He's saving the living entities. He's killing the demons. Not Krishna himself, not Krishna playing his flute. That's Vasudeva Krishna. Vasudeva Krishna is eliminating the influence of negative personality. And so how does Krishna do all of this? How does he come into the material world? How does he exist among the material elements? Well, Krishna himself said that Mayam tatamidam sarvam jagaravyaktamurtina, that I'm all pervading, but matstani sarvabhutani, and I'm within every living entity, nacha teshvavastutaha, but they are not within me. They are within me, but they're not within me. Otherwise, in my form as Karanodakshai Vishnu, everything's within me, and I am within everything. But in my form of Krishna, I interact with my devotees according to their according to their degree of surrender, according to their degree of desire to serve me, then I reciprocate accordingly. And if they give 100%, I give unlimited. It's the best business anyone can do is give 100% to Krishna, because he will give you 100,000, million percent and unlimited. So this samashrita, taking shelter of Krishna's lotus feet, is so important. It's such a unbelievable process. So this chapter goes on to explain the birth. After that birth, it was very interesting. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says there were four, that Vasudeva was totally amazed at four particular things upon Krishna's birth. When Krishna had appeared, he saw him in this miraculous form. I always make the point of any lady who's had children, they know how painful it could be. Now, how painful would it be if the child was as big as Vishnu, armor? That definitely wouldn't feel very good. Armor and all kinds of decorations. But Krishna came from Devaki's heart. He's there within the heart. When he went into Vasudeva's mind, it stated that then he transferred himself into the heart of Devaki, meaning in his own personal form. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says he created a certain condition within the womb that he was there, but he wasn't there. Just like he's just Mayam tatamidam sarvam jagaravyaktamurtina. I am present and I'm not present. Of course, he even says that in the next verse in Bhagavad Gita. So Vasudeva saw this child, the child with armor and four arms with weapons. So he thought four things that just totally bewildered him, he was totally awestruck by these things. That with his own material eyes, he's seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who can hardly be perceived even by great, as I just spoke a few texts from different places where it says, and Krishna himself says, Naham Sarvasya, Naham Prakasha Sarvasya, that I can't be seen by ordinary persons. So Vasudeva is thinking, I'm such an ordinary person that Kamsa has imprisoned me. I'm bound by ignorance. I'm also in the prison house of Kamsa, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so merciful that he has appeared before me. This is one wonderful thing. And he says, although he's the supreme transcendence, he appeared from the womb of Devaki. Otherwise, he's so merciful. He could just manifest. He could just, he's always manifest. He's within the heart of every living being, but now he has appeared personally in the womb of my wife, Devaki. And he said another amazing thing, he came out of the womb and he was fully decorated. These weapons, cloth, belt, earrings, crown, royal paraphernalia, all these things were there. And so this is totally amazing. And then the last point, that the Supreme Lord, whom fear itself is afraid of, has appeared as a father, has accepted me as a father out of fear. Of course, Vasudev's seeing that he's taking shelter of this ordinary, otherwise he's saying, I'm an ordinary person. And out of fear, he's taking shelter of me because, of course, Kamsa wants to kill him. So this is how Vasudeva was seeing it, that he's taken shelter of me, and therefore I have to give him shelter. So this is, and then I won't have time to go into all the prayers of Vasudeva and Devaki, but just to summarize them. Vasudeva began to pray, and he prays in 4 verses that he is the supremacy of the Lord. Then he says something very interesting. I think, let me see if I can find this verse very quickly. In his prayers, he says one thing very interesting. And he speaks about the 3 modes of nature being under control. That explains how Vishnu is in charge of goodness, that Brahma is in charge of passion, that Shiva is in charge of ignorance. And then he says something, I think it's the next verse. Oh, my Lord, proprietor of all creation, you have now appeared in my house, desiring to protect this world. I am sure that you will kill all the armies that are moving all over the world under the leadership of the politicians who are addressed as Kshatriya leaders, but who are actually demons. They must be killed by you for the protection of the innocent public. But then he says, oh, my Lord, Lord of the demigods, after hearing the prophecy that you would take birth in our home and kill him, this uncivilized Kamsa has killed so many of your elder brothers. As soon as he hears from his lieutenants that you have appeared, he will immediately come with weapons to kill you. Otherwise, even though Vasudeva is seeing this transcendental form with weapons, he's seeing Vishnu, still out of affection, he's saying, Kamsa is going to come to kill you, so you better be ready. But then Devaki, she begins her prayers, and she begins prayers by very philosophically describing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains something about her. Devaki begins her prayers very philosophically, but Vishwanath says, this is because she has motherly affection. She wants to convince Krishna to disappear, to hide, to take a small baby form so she can hide him. That's what she wants. But she's thinking, just like we may think, if we want someone to do something, what do? We flatter them. So she's thinking not like mundane flattery. Let me glorify my son, who happens to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Let me glorify him by giving him this transcendental, speaking of his transcendental qualities. And then after I speak, he'll be more inclined to do what I want. So she did. And her prayers are very beautiful, very philosophical, very beautiful, talking about the material manifestation, and it comes and goes, but you always remain there. You control time, you control all the material elements, you do all these things. But now, by appearing, you're giving shelter to all the living beings. But then she doesn't. She says, because you dispel the fear of your devotees, I request you save us and give us protection from the terrible fear of Kamsa. Otherwise, she's saying, you have no fear and you dispel the fear of your devotees. But what happened to Vasudeva and myself? We're so full of fear. And what is their fear? No. Their fear is that Kamsa will discover Krishna and kill him. That's their fear. But then in this prayer, she says very intelligently that your form, which has appeared here, is appreciated by yogis in meditation. Now, yogis are seeing your form, but you're not visible. You're not physically visible. So what she's saying, just like you do for the yogis, disappear, be invisible, be an object of subtle, imperceivable meditation. And then she goes on to say, because of your appearance, I'm becoming more and more anxious in fear of Kamsa, not for herself, but for Krishna. Therefore, please arrange that this sinful Kamsa, be unable to understand that you have taken birth from my womb. So she's motherly affection. She's thinking, yeah, he has armor, 4 arms, but Kamsa, he's unlimitedly powerful. Somehow or another, he could figure out a way to trick him, just like Bakasura thought he could trick Lord Vishnu. So he thought he could, figured everything out. Hiranyakashipu thought he figured everything out. So here, he thinks, I've got everything figured out. I don't need someone to guide me. I have everything. My intelligence is so good. I figured it all out. So you are the all-pervading Supreme Personality of Godhead, and your transcendental four-armed form holding conch shell, disc, club, and lotus is unnatural. Listen, these are the arguments of Devaki, almost like the arguments of Arjuna and at the end of the first chapter. Please withdraw this form, which is, invisible to everyone. And please understand that, if you walk around like this with 4 weapons, it was very unnatural for this world. So please withdraw this form. And then what she says next is even more intimate. So this Supreme Person, the creator of all moving and non-moving beings, your transcendental body is there at the time of devastation. But now this transcendental form has taken birth from my womb. People will not be able to believe this, and they will ridicule. Otherwise, if I say, if I reveal that this 4-handed Supreme Personality of Godhead took birth from my womb, everybody will just say, oh, you were crazy. And of course, I think just I'll try to conclude now. So Krishna appeared, and Devaki and Vasudeva are very fearful, but but at the same time, he's so sweet, he's so wonderful. They're offering these prayers. And finally, Krishna, out of love for his devotees, they want me to disappear. So he took the form of a tiny baby, and he would not be seen by Kamsa. So therefore, Vasudeva took him sometimes shows a basket, carried him on his head or in a basket, something. Now, in the beginning of this chapter, it says that the constellation Rohini, which only appears to usher in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, had appeared. Brahman's fires and sacrifices were going on. Everything that had been stopped by Kamsa was going on. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead has just appeared. So, but Vasudeva and Devaki are fearful for his life. And therefore, they simply want Krishna to take some form somewhere where they can easily hide him away. They can protect him. Of course, out of false ego, we may think we can protect oneself, but they're not thinking out of false ego. They're thinking, he's our little baby, we have to protect him. So they're working towards that goal of protecting Krishna. So this is such a wonderful pastime of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that someone can think that Krishna could be harmed, just like Mother Yashoda. She also thought that Krishna can be harmed, that everybody was so concerned about him at every moment, all concerned about feeding him. This is the effect that Krishna should exercise over our consciousness, that he completely captures us, and that we forget that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we remember that he is the Lord of our heart, the Lord of our senses, and he is the Supreme Person to whom everyone should surrender. And therefore, we take up this mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to bring everyone, all living entities, back to the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So these are some points about this wonderful appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, of Krishna. So I'll stop here, see if there are any questions, either written, spoken, or otherwise. Those on Zoom could raise their hands if they wish, or write something in the chat if there's any questions.
Gurudev, a question that comes to mind is that last year and this year, due to the ongoing pandemic, we could not, in most places, gather personally where we'd be accustomed celebrating Janmasthami. In the physical association of devotees would be doing so many services at the temple, and in so many different very, very Krishna conscious activities in each other's company and association. Being that as it may, and it seems that especially in Trinidad, this pandemic, the lockdown and all these things may continue for some time in the future still. In light of this ongoing situation, how can we continue to be encouraged in our Krishna conscious practice and not just survive, but to thrive? I was especially reflecting on on that today on Janmashtami, and I thought I would ask that question.
Mm.
Hare
I'm
Krishna.
glad you did, because I was thinking of this just before the class. I forgot to mention it. So Krishna's arranged that. The first Janmasthami was in New York. I mean, first Janmasthami in ISKCON was in New York. Devotees had absolutely no idea of anything. You know, there was talk about initiation. The Mukunda asked, what was his name? Can't remember his name right now. Anyway, do you want to get
Michael
initiated?
Grant?
Huh?
Michael Grant?
No, not his name. The name of his friend, Joachim,
Okay.
Carl Jürgen. Carl. So he asked Carl, want to get initiated? I don't know, and they were even saying things like, they went to smoke some marijuana, and Carl said, "Do you think Swami might not like this?" And Mukunda said, "Yeah, probably not. But on the other hand, he told me that he used to deal drugs." So they were so innocent. So the point is, Prabhupada said, we will celebrate Janmashtami. First, we will chant, then we will hear, then we will chant, and we will hear, and we will chant, and no one will eat or drink the whole day. Their jaws dropped open. But the point is that the first few Janmashtamis were like that. It was like hearing and chanting. So, whenever we have difficult circumstances, Krishna is giving us the opportunity to internalize more, to take more shelter of the holy name, to take more shelter of Krishna Katha, to take more shelter of, and to understand the wealth of preaching and knowledge of Krishna consciousness that is surrounding us. Sometimes when we're in our own little local atmosphere, then we don't see the whole world of ISKCON around us. So I saw the pandemic as an opportunity for devotees to become aware that at any point in time I can hear a class, a Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita class, either live, or I can go to there's archives with thousands and thousands of classes. I can hear Srila Prabhupada. So if we weather this pandemic as we should weather any difficulty in life, and of course this has been a little longer, especially in Trinidad, because in New York they're having a full Janmashtami. In Mexico they're having a full Janmashtami. Many places where it's allowed, many temples. Other temples are, half or something. But in Trinidad, you're just getting an extra dose of this opportunity to take advantage of all the different means by which Krishna consciousness can be experienced, practiced, and absorbed. And so if Krishna is prolonging that, it means that there must be some need for further induction in the hearing and chanting process, and making us aware that this is what Krishna consciousness is. Krishna consciousness is not going to the temple, and sometimes we think that just going every once in a while, bringing some gift, and some people don't even do that, and going to a festival, that I'm becoming fully Krishna conscious. So Krishna has made us aware by restricting us. Now we can see our level of Krishna consciousness, our level of strength, our level of dedication, and we can understand that now I need to increase my hearing and my chanting, so that when I do associate, it will be meaningful and not just social. Just like there was one on Balaram's appearance day, one lady who's a friend of a lady devotee. She's very favorable. She likes the devotee, but she hasn't surrendered to Krishna. She came to our program, you know, and little tiny program we had, and she was, she just was talking about, the experience of just had the happiness of coming together. And then she was saying that, yes, I've been looking for the devotees, and I've been going to the Hindu temple. But she said it's just like social gathering. She's going to some Hindu temple. So Krishna is trying to take us out of the sentimental social gathering consciousness and put us into the Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Shmaranam consciousness. That's how we can see it and remain enlivened, not just survive, but remain enlivened and see. We have to see that at every moment, everything that's happening in our lives is an opportunity to advance in Krishna consciousness. And this is one of those opportunities. So we can either advance or we can use it as an excuse to, well, I would have been more Krishna conscious if I could have gone to the temple, but since I can't go to the temple, Krishna must want me to be in Maya. I'm sure that's, we all know that he doesn't, but sometimes our mind works that way. What can I do? Maya is very powerful. So these are all opportunities to experience the full gamut of Krishna consciousness.
So in other words, like one thing we can be mindful of is our responsibility as devotees, whether or not we have the opportunity to associate regularly with devotees. It doesn't relieve us of our responsibility. And sometimes when we have that regular opportunity, we can take our responsibility for granted. And therefore, this is a time to sort of reflect and build on that or repair if there's need.
God helps those who help themselves. So we're, Krishna is giving us that opportunity also to reflect more on the instructions and indications of Parampara and the Vaishnavas and the spiritual master. And yes, it's a very good point to become aware that, and also to appreciate association for what it should be and not take it for what it shouldn't be. Just be in the midst of association doesn't mean to be in the midst of devotees. It means to be absorbed in hearing, chanting, and serving, and seeing all that as an opportunity. Very good point. Anyone else have a question, comment? Oh, here's something. Okay. On the note of Trinidad needing to continue to engage in more indirect, deliberate effort on our part to participate during the pandemic, please describe a little about how devotees could collect contacts, phone numbers, emails to connect with others remotely to further Lord Chaitanya's movement. Well, I don't know what more I can say. I think you've already said it. So, yes, another, besides just intense personal experience of Krishna consciousness through hearing and chanting, we can expand that most important service that Lord Chaitanya has given us and Srila Prabhupada has built his movement around, which is preaching and giving Krishna consciousness to others and saving them from their hellish plight of materialistic life. So, of course, it would have been good to have collected names, contacts, phone numbers beforehand, but still, you can get in touch with someone and and get other contacts. And so it can, yes, very good point. Anyone else? Well, if there's no other questions, or, oh wait, here's something here. Bhagavan Narada. Yes. Yes, you have to unmute. Yeah, there you go.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, my obeisance is always Papa. I think it's a cultural difference that I have on my end. We have this project here in San Antonio. I sometimes find myself, maybe, I don't know. I guess I could just say frustrated. It feels like we have an Indian community in San Antonio, and I'm trying to, I guess, seek advice from this. It seems like we do programs, we do harinams, we do a lot of outreach, prasadam distribution. And then when it's Janmasthami time, or when it's time to pull the Rath Yatra cart, it's like we get bombarded with phone calls, and they want to show up just for that. And they don't, really respond to anything else we're doing. So that's what it feels like on our end, because we don't have a big mandir or installed deities or anything like that. So how do we help that community, or what would be some practical advice to engage the kind of Hindu community here in San Antonio, besides just the rituals, especially being a Westerner, I guess you could say, or a Texan?
Yeah, that's always a challenge. And of course, as you said, the Indian people in general, I mean, we look at what is the preaching strategy in India. Every time I go, they're building a new temple, building a new temple, building a new temple, because to the average person of Indian descent or Indian birth, that's what they learn. That's how they relate to spirituality, is through a temple, deities, programs. So I think what I have suggested to you a couple of times, I think the best way to penetrate that community is through the youth, young people who were born in America, who are Americans, but they have some of the culture, although they themselves are not totally attracted to the traditional, sitting around in a bhajan that they don't understand, or doing all kinds of rituals and everything. So I know that that's been one of our biggest factors for success in India, was when the devotees started preaching in the universities and attracting nice, young, intelligent people who are also attracted somewhat to Western thought, or Western ways or something. And those young people came forward, and that kind of gave a lot of power to our movement. And then India just took off. But Prabhupada himself showed that Indians are attracted. He made at one point, Giriraj Maharaj told me, at one point Prabhupada said in India that we will not make a big temple in Bombay or Delhi. We will simply have a big hall. People will come in with their shoes and sit down and hear philosophy, not bell ringing. But then he decided no. He decided to build a huge temple in Bombay, and he authorized to do so in Delhi. And the result is that, but out of those hundreds of thousands of people, on Janmasthami, sometimes in Bombay, they have over 1 million people. So out of those 1 million people, how many of them are taking Krishna consciousness seriously? Maybe a few hundred, or maybe a couple thousand. So, if you reduce that down to percentages, it's pretty much the same as what you're experiencing. And of course, if you had a mandir with deities, especially with Radha Krishna, they would be coming. But would they be coming to hear the Bhagavatam? Or would they be coming to, to go through a process which is familiar to them? So I suggest working with the youth, the Indian youth, of course, Western youth and Indian youth, and they get along. It's not like they don't have that cultural division like we may feel with other people who are just attracted to the externals. That's my humble suggestion.
Thank you.
Here we have a question. If Krishna's lotus feet is the source of happiness, how is it that the devotees in Krishna Lila suffer so much? And what lessons can we learn from that? They suffer so much because whenever those lotus feet are not visible, the gopis are constantly meditating on Krishna's lotus feet, thinking that those lotus feet may be subjected to the prickle of thorns, the sharp edges of stones, the hard surface. Even the gopis in their ecstasy, they think even our breasts must be very hard to Krishna's lotus feet. So this is the why they're feeling they're suffering, but they're not suffering. They're suffering separation, just like we're suffering separation. But when we chant the holy name, then that separation is satisfied. Otherwise, we feel satisfied. But because the separation is still there, there's a type of transcendental suffering. Transcendental suffering is not just like a mother. A mother will always be in anxiety about her children, but that anxiety brings her the greatest pleasure of intense memory, intense remembering of her children. So it's not really suffering, but suffering the transcendental dualities of vipralambha sambhoga, or of separation and union, make both union sweeter and separation more intense. So that's what we can learn, that if we capture Krishna's lotus feet in our hearts, then whatever external condition is thrust upon us, that will give us solace and so much happiness and bliss within our own consciousness. Any other question or comment? Well, if not, we can stop here. And I wish that all of you, either electronically or otherwise with your own deities, however you're celebrating by chanting. Usually I try to chant a little more than on Janmasthami. So chant more, hearing more. Let this day be in immersion in Krishna consciousness, totally immersed. And then let that immersion help us understand that this is what we should do every day. And as I said in the beginning, as we, Bhaktivinoda Thakur chants, Udila Aruna Pura Vabhagi, Vijamani Amani Jagi, that let Krishna, just like the sun, Aviditimira Tapana Rupi Hritkagane Vidaje. Bhaktivinoda Thakur later on says in that particular song that that the soul, the sun of Krishna is rising, and when it comes to full noon, then there'll be no more shadows, there'll be no more darkness. That will be fully Krishna conscious, through Krishna appearing as the holy name every day in our consciousness, in our hearts. Hare Krishna, Shri Janmasthami ki jai, Shri Krishna Avirbhava Mahotsava ki jai, Jai
Jai.
Gaur Premanandi.
Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Bo.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.